Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to Elder Scrolls Online. I have been playing this game again recently. I used to play it way back in the day when it first came out on Xbox, but they have recently added it to PC. Technically still the Xbox version, but you can play on your PC. And I've been playing it a little bit recently, and I just kind of want to make a video and read some of the lore books because a lot of people pick them up and don't end up reading them, but they actually have some pretty interesting content. So in this video, I'm going to read volume 1 and 2 of the Myths of Sheogorath. So I hope that you guys are comfortable and relaxed. So I'm going to get started. Myths of Sheogorath, Volume 1. King Leander was known to be an exceedingly rational man. He lived in a palace that was small, simple structure, unadorned with art, and ugly to look upon. I do not need more than this, he would say. Why spend my gold on such luxuries when I can spend it on my armies or on great public works? His kingdom prospered under his sensible rule. However, the people did not always share the king's sense of practicality. They would build houses that were beautiful to look upon, although not necessarily very practical. They devoted time and energy to works of art. They would celebrate events with lavish festivals. In general, they were quite happy. King Leander was disappointed that more of them did not follow his example and lead frugal, sensible lives. He brooded on this for many years. Finally, he decided that his subjects simply didn't understand how much more they could accomplish if they didn't waste time on those frivolous activities. Perhaps, he reasoned, they just needed more examples. The king decreed that all new buildings must be simple, unadorned, and no larger than was necessary for their function. The people were not happy about this, but they liked their king and respected the new law. In a few short years, there were more plain buildings than ornate ones. The citizens used the money saved to make and buy even more lavish art and hold even more excessive celebrations. Once again, King Leander decided to provide them a strict example of how beneficial it would be to use their time and resources for more practical purposes. He banned all works of art in the city. The people were quite put out by this, but they knew that their king was doing what he thought was best for them. However, human nature is not so easily denied. In a few more years, the city was filled with plain, simple buildings and devoid of any art. However, the people now had even more money and time to devote to their parties and festivals. With a heavy heart, King Leander decided that his people were to be treated like children. Like all children, they needed rules and discipline laid down by great figures of authority to make them understand what was truly important in life. He decreed that there should be no revelry in the city. Singing, dancing, and music were all banned. Even food and drink were limited to water and simple foodstuffs. The people had had enough. Revolt was out of the question, since King Leander had a very well trained and equipped army. They visited the shrines and temples in droves, praying to all the gods, and even to some of the Daedric princes, that King Leander would revoke these new, oppressive laws. Sheogorath heard their pleas and decided to visit King Leander. He appeared to the king in his dreams as a field of flowers, each with arms instead of petals, and the face of the mad god in the center. I am Lord of the creative and Lord of the deranged. Since you have no use for my gifts of creativity, I have decided to bless you with an abundance of my other gift. From that day forward, every child born in the city was born into madness. Some infants do not reveal illnesses of the mind. It was several years before this was realized. The king's own son was among the victims, suffering from seizures and delusions. Yet, King Leander refused to change his ways. When his son, Glint, was 12 years old, he stabbed his father while Leander was sleeping. With his dying breath, King Leander asked, "Why?" His son replied, "It is the most practical thing I could do." The new young king ordered all the palace servants slaughtered. He ordered a grand festival to celebrate his new reign and the repeal of Leander's laws. He served the crowds a stew made from the carcasses of the palace servants. He ordered the east-facing walls of every building painted red, and the west-facing walls painted in stripes. He decreed that all citizens wear ornate masks on the back of their heads. He then burned down the palace and began construction of a new one. In the new palace, the young king ordered his own personal chambers to not have any doors, for fear that small woodland creatures would attack him. He ordered that it have no windows, for fear that the sun and moon were jealous of him and plotting his death. And thus ended the line of King Leander. The people of the city returned to their grand works of art and raucous celebrations. They talked and acted as if they still had a living king, and even kept up the palace, using it to house and care for their mad children. Sheogorath was mightily pleased with this outcome. From that day forward, the city was blessed with more than the normal number of gifted artists and deranged citizens. On to Myths of Sheogorath, Volume 2. Sheogorath invents music in the earliest of days, in a time when the world was still raw. Sheogorath decided to walk amongst the mortals. He donned his guise of gentleman with a cane, and moved from place to place without being recognized. After 11 days and 11 nights, Sheogorath decided that life among mortals was even more boring than his otherworldly existence. "What can I do to make their lives more interesting?" he said to himself. At that same moment, a young woman nearby commented wistfully to herself, "The sounds of the birds are so beautiful." Sheogorath silently agreed with her. Mortals could not make the beautiful and inspired calls of birds. Their voices were wretched and mundane. He could not change the nature of mortals, for that was the purview of other Daedric princes. However, he could give them tools to make beautiful sounds. Sheogorath took hold of the petulant woman and ripped her asunder. From her tendons he made lutes. From her skull and arm bones he made a drum. From her bones he made flutes. He presented these gifts to the mortals, and thus music was born. The Contest of Wills. A mighty wizard named Ravate once walked the winds of time to find Lord Sheogorath. His intent was to win a favor from him. This most capricious of the Daedric princes. Upon finding Sheogorath for Ravate, Sheogorath was in a playful mood. He proposed a game. I will grant your wish if you are still sane in 3 days. During that time, I will do my utmost to drive you mad. It shall be great fun. Ravate was not so certain that he liked this new deal. He had been really looking forward to driving 1,000 men mad. Lord Sheogorath, I regret having disturbed you with my shallow, selfish request. I withdraw my unfortunate plea and will humbly leave this place. Sheogorath just laughed. Too late, my dear Ravate. The game is afoot, and you must play. Ravate fled, only to find that all exits from the Daedric realm were now sealed. He wandered aimlessly, constantly looking over his shoulder, jumping at every noise. Each moment brought new terror as he waited for Sheogorath to begin. After 3 days, Ravate was convinced that every plant and animal was a tool of Sheogorath. He hadn't eaten or drunk for fear that Sheogorath had poisoned the food or drink. He hadn't slept for fear of Sheogorath invading his dreams, which was foolish, as dreams are the domain of Vermina. May she grant us restful sleep. It was then that Sheogorath appeared to him. Ravate cried out, "You have set the whole world to watching me. Every creature and plant are doing your bidding to drive me mad." Sheogorath replied, "Actually, I have done nothing. You have driven yourself mad with your fears. Your delusions prove that you are truly deranged, and therefore I win. While you wanted to make 1,000 men mad, I only wanted to break one man's mind, yours." From that day forward, Ravate served Sheogorath's every whim. Whenever daring travelers try to approach Sheogorath, Ravate warns them, "Sheogorath is already inside each of us. You have already lost." Next up, we have a record from the Chords of Madness. This one is Volume 6. Hircine's Tale. Ever proud and boastful, Oblivion's mad prince stood 1/5 day of mid-year among the frigid peaks of Skyrim, and beckoned forth Hircine for parley. The huntsman god materialized, for this was his day, and the boldness of Sheogorath intrigued him. Wry without equal, Sheogorath holds in his realm giggling loons, flamboyant otters, and craven mutilators. The mad prince will ply profitless bargains and promote senseless bloodshed for nothing more than the joy of another's confusion, tragedy, or rage. So it was that Sheogorath had set a stage on which to play himself as rival to Hircine. Without haste, the coy prince proffered his contest. Each prince was to groom a beast to meet at this place again 3 years to the hour and do fatal battle. Expressionless behind his fearsome countenance, Hircine agreed, and with naught but a dusting of snow in the drift, the princes were gone to their realms. Confident, but knowing Sheogorath for a trickster, Hircine secretly bred an abomination in his hidden realm. An ancient Daedroth he summoned, and imbued it with the foul curse of lycanthropy. Of pitch heart and jagged fang, the unspeakable horror had no peer even among the great hunters of Hircine's sphere. In the 3rd year, on the given day, Hircine returned, where Sheogorath leaned cross-legged on a stone, whistling with idle patience. The prince of the hunt struck his spear to the ground, bringing forth his unnatural snarling behemoth. Doffing his cap, sly as ever, Sheogorath stood and stepped aside to reveal a tiny, colorful bird perched atop the stone. Demurely it chirped in the bristling gusts, scarcely audible. In a twisted, springing heap, the Daedroth was upon the stone, leaving only rubble where the boulder had been. Thinking itself victorious, the monster's bloodied maw curled into a mock grin when a subdued song drifted in the crisp air. The tiny bird lightly hopped along the snout of the furious Daedroth. Sheogorath looked on, quietly mirthful, as the diminutive creature picked at a bit of detritus caught in scales betwixt the fiery eyes of the larger beast. With howling fury, the were-thing blinded itself, trying to pluck away the nuisance. And so it continued for hours, Hircine looking on in shame while his finest beast gradually destroyed itself in pursuit of the seemingly oblivious bird, all the while chirping a mournful tune to the lonesome rage. Livid, but beaten, Hircine burned the ragged corpse and withdrew to his realm, swearing in forgotten tongues. His curses still hang in those peaks, and no wayfarer tarries for fear of his wrathful aspect in those obscured heights. Turning on his heel, Sheogorath beckoned the minuscule songbird to perch atop his shoulder, and strolled down the mountain, making for the warm breezes and vibrant sunsets of the Abetian coast, whistling in tune with the tiniest champion in Tamriel. The last lore book that I want to read tonight is called A Werewolf's Confession by Captain Philmont of the Old Gate Lancers, Daggerfall Covenant Army. The prisoner called for me today, and I had the dubious privilege of listening to his confession, separated from him by narrow iron bars that I knew would be insufficient to protect me. I took down his words with a trembling hand. What follows is my best rendering, although he was so soft-spoken that at times I had to guess at the precise words. Nevertheless, I am confident that what follows accurately represents the substance of our conversation. I accepted this curse at a young age. I was impressionable. My pack leader was a family friend, an elder in our village. I wanted to be strong, and I relished the strength the curse gave me. I would not have called it a curse then. But with youth comes recklessness, and I was not good at disguising what I was. Eventually, they discovered my true nature, and I was driven from the village. My pack leader failed me. He did not protect me. He cared too much about his own status to risk it for my sake. I was alone. Everywhere I went, I heard the shouts of crowds, saw the bright torches of the angry mob. I never lingered long in one place before my secret was discovered. I came to hate them, the superstitious villagers. I came to represent I came to resent what I couldn't have. I blamed them for my own recklessness. It was not the curse that plagued me, but the narrow-mindedness of these provincial men and women. I was afraid to hunt, so I was always hungry, and the hunger turned me feral. It was in this state that I came across them, a family of innocent farmers, just like the innocent farmers that had hounded me from my village after village. My vision turned red, and I flew into a fury. At last my hunger was satisfied, but when the rage subsided and I looked on what I'd done, my stomach turned. This was what all those villagers were afraid of when they tormented me with their torches and sickles. That's when I acknowledged my curse for what it was. I have hunted many years since, afraid to turn myself in, but disgusted with my base impulses. You don't realize what a great favor you have done capturing me. And then, having told his story, the creature, looking very much like a man, begged me to put him out of his misery. I hope you guys enjoyed those few lore books that I wanted to read tonight. And do let me know if you guys would like to hear more Elder Scrolls lore. I am a big fan of it, and I love Skyrim and Elder Scrolls Online. So definitely let me know if you guys want to see more. With all that being said, I hope that you guys have a wonderful day or night, and I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye. Goodbye.